YouTube Ozick going the Goat House is back. And today I am ranking every starting quarterback in the NFL halfway through the season. We're a little bit over halfway. We got Thursday Night Football tonight, Colts at Titans. Excited for that. And for every game, really. And we're covering every single game on our Twitter. We're live tweeting during the game, so go ahead and check that out. Plenty of other NFL talk during the week in the offseason and at all times on the Twitter. And even on the channel, full NFL coverage in season, off season with free agency and the NFL draft. So if you're new, please subscribe. Appreciate the support. For any returners, we have an Instagram, podcast, Patreon as well. Link in the description and the comments for anything that you may need. Real quick, that Patreon I mentioned, link down below. Bonus content galore. Junior score predictions are on there. My score predictions on YouTube every single week. My bets of the week for NFL and college football every single week. Score predictions for college football as well. Playoff predictions. We'll have a playoff predictions video on the channel here once more before the playoffs actually start. And then, but every other week, the playoff predictions are updated with updated seedings, round by round, and Super Bowl prediction on the Patreon. Bonus content, Discord access. There's plenty more on there, and we're always adding more. Let's start at the bottom here. I didn't actually rank 32, and that's because here we are going into Week 10, and the Cowboys, who Dak's played majority of the time, but we know he's not returning, so it would have been silly to rank Dak in there, which he was looking pretty good in my opinion. But Garrett Gilbert, Andy Dalton. Gilbert actually looked pretty decent in his one game against the Steelers, but it sounds like as long as he's healthy, he can be the guy. So there's just not enough play under these guys' belts right now to rank them. Washington looks like it's going to be Alex Smith going forward. They benched Dwayne Haskins, and Kyle Allen got hurt after a couple starts. So Alex Smith should be the guy going forward. And Dolphins, Tua Tagovailoa, the rookie top-tier draft pick, looking good. Has only played 2 games, got a few snaps in a third game. The first game we saw him get action, but just not enough to rank him. But I did picture him in this slide because I think we're all pretty damn confident that he's the best one out of this group, and we don't really expect him to be with this group going forward. So we will come back. We will rank these guys when it's all said and done at the end of the year. This is just the halfway point. I expect Tua's looking good so far. Didn't have to do a whole bunch against the Rams. I just didn't need to, and then played extremely well against the Cardinals. So still more to see from Tua. But 29, Sam Darnold. He's been in and out of games, so that sure doesn't help his case, his cause. But he hasn't been too good, in crucial moments. That's kind of what showed up, even his career at USC, and why I wasn't really high on him. When you needed Sam Darnold the most, he really didn't show up. Whether it was inability to make big plays when he can make big plays earlier in games, inability to be accurate consistently down the stretch, crucial moments, and then the turnovers. He's not like a high turnover type of guy. He does turn the ball over a bit, but nothing crazy, I suppose. But it seems to show up in crucial moments. So Sam Darnold, and I guess not being able to stay on the field puts him down here at 29. Nick Mullins at 28. Nick Mullins actually has his moments. He's actually played in 5 games this year already, which is pretty wild. Garoppolo in and out of games. Nick Mullins has his moments looking good, and he has his moments taking himself and his teams out of the game, similar to Darnold as well. Statistically, he hasn't really been that bad, but based on the play, which I'm mainly going for, you're going to find he's going to find himself down here at 28. Drew Lock at 27. Been extremely disappointed with Drew Lock. Very inaccurate. His accuracy is just not there right now. Very inconsistent. Showing up later in games. I guess the ability to run for the extra yards for the end zone, I guess, helps him. But down here at 27, not getting too much help. I'm actually going back and seeing some of these sacks. I don't like what he's doing. He's kind of stepping into him, panicking a little early, ends up stepping into him. So a lot of sacks go on him as well. Just hasn't been too good with the ball. I expect more out of him. If you're going to turn the ball over or miss some throws, intermediate to shorter throws, you got to have more big plays down the field, and I almost expect that from Drew Lock. We haven't really been getting it. Cam Newton at 26, the touchdown interception ratio is not looking too good. I believe it's 2-7 right now. That's not too good. Obviously, gets a little bit of bonus points, with his running ability. I'm not going to give him a whole bunch for that, though. But yeah, and he's had his big moments, his big plays. He showed it in the Seattle game, gave us hope, but then, games like Denver and San Francisco, not really sure what that is from him. So he has his bad moments. I guess the running ability, which is a bonus, not a huge bonus, is barely splitting them up from these guys 27, 28, 29 who are all pretty much in the same area. You know, if Darnold was able to stay healthier, he maybe could be, you know, that could be splitting him up, and he can be at 26. So not much is splitting these guys up here. 25 is Daniel Jones. I mean, he has his beautiful moments. So those beautiful play moments, big play moments. You know, even seeing him run, he's pretty good at the read option. We've seen that. Then he just wipes it all away with terrible mistakes, especially in crucial moments. But he has more big playability, explosive playability than these guys below him, and I guess that's what's splitting him up. I do think that, you know, like I said, Cam through Sam Darnold, not much splitting them up. I do think there's a little more of a gap with Daniel Jones there at 25, but if it wasn't for those the bad interceptions, turnovers, just like late in big-time moments, he'd be much higher. He'd be much higher, but that's a big part of playing quarterback. It's a big part of the game, obviously. Next group of guys, Nick Foles at 24. Nick Foles, I want the Bears to let him throw downfield a little more, because when he does early in games, I should say, because when he does it, see some big playability. See him actually successful earlier in games doing that. But yeah, other than that, early in games, nothing much going. You know, he can't really escape pressure. Can't throw on the run. You know, misses some open guys here and there. The rest of the offense and the play calling sure isn't helping him out that much. But yeah, not playing his best ball. You know, I always wonder where he'd be at if he started week 1, because there does seem to be some confusion with Nick Foles, Matt Nagy, and company there still here with the offense. So it's just something, you don't factor into this, but it's just something you wonder, you know, but it hasn't looked good. Gardner Minshew's 23. Now, right now, he's not the starter. He's played enough games to be ranked in this. But yeah, like Dak Prescott has too, but we know he's not coming back. Minshew may come back. If he's healthy, he may come back in for Jake Luton. So it's kind of, so we can throw, if not, we can throw Luton in the to be determined list, but Minshew's played, you know, enough. He started off much better earlier than really has came down. I think the loss is maybe not all on him. Definitely not all on him. I'm not a fan of the coaching. I'm not a fan of the defense at all. But I think, you know, I talked about it. I think some teams were able to figure out Minshew game plan for him, just not enough big playability downfield, which is huge for today's NFL. But, you know, he's not like he's turned the ball over like crazy. He's able to use his legs a little bit. There's definitely some sacks on him, a lot of turnovers on him, or most of the turnovers. So, yeah, in terms of the turnover ratio and maybe accuracy, maybe you would think he'd be a little bit higher than some of these other guys, but just nothing to kind of take over the game. I think he's been figured out, exposed. That's when, you know, now missing some games. That doesn't help as well. And Luton might be taking over for those reasons. Carson Wentz at 22. I've never been a huge Carson Wentz guy. Some people talk about him every year, you know, almost entering the elite level. And I wasn't quite there, but, you know, ever. But I did not see him coming, you know, him playing in his whole second half of the season left. But he's been pretty bad this year. The footwork's been terrible. Decision-making, holding onto the ball, a lot of sacks are on him, stepping into sacks, seeing the pressure coming and still deciding to try to make a last-second throw, you know, not throwing the ball away. He's just been too wild with the ball. It's very strange to see at this time, but I think he could start to pick it up. I feel like I say that every week, but I think he could start to pick it up after this bye week here that he just had in week 9. But it hasn't been good. I mean, he's clutched up at the end of games and won some games, so that's what's keeping him up ahead of Minshew, Foles, you know, some of these other guys. Because other than that, he has not been good at all. It's been crazy. Phillip Rivers at 21. He's had his moments. It's weird with Phillip Rivers because you could argue that he probably would have. You could argue two sides here. There's been some games where they've kind of controlled the game defensively, and they didn't need a whole bunch out of Rivers. They just need to be a game manager. And you could say, yeah, he could have more production with that. Good. Could have some more negative production, you know, if he had to go all out in those games as well. So they're almost better off with him a game manager, but then when they're playing offensive teams, you know, can he keep up, take care of the ball, make the big-time throws? So it's kind of all over the place with Phillip Rivers. He's had his moments. He's had some pretty throws here and there, but just not enough from Phillip Rivers. Kirk Cousins at 20. Started off very poorly. Starting to pick it up a little bit, but hasn't been asked to do a whole bunch. You know, I think he's relying on the run game, relying on Dalvin Cook. But when he has had to throw, just played the Lions last week, he actually came out throwing, which I was impressed with, and making some good throws downfield. But we need to see more of it. You know, what can he find a way when, you know, everything isn't going right? You know, if some things are starting to go south, can he pick his team up? You know, we see in the Seattle game, started to take his team down when they were actually in that game. So he has not been good this year. Starting to, but based on the beginning of the year, he'd probably be lower. Yeah, he'd probably be under Rivers. Him and Wentz kind of been in the same boat. I think Cousins starting to pick it up a little bit. And that barely gets him up, but 20 is really not a great ranking, especially when I didn't even rank all 32. For Cousins, you almost expect more with the talent the Vikings have. I know the offensive line doesn't help him at all times. Jared Goff at 19. If it wasn't for his last outing against the Dolphins, he'd probably be ranked much better than this. We're only halfway through the season, so we're only going off a chunk of games here. So one game will kind of do him in to drop him down to 19. But yeah, kind of just rely similar to Cousins, where everything just has to kind of be going very well for him to be making big plays. I think in similar ways. I think he relies on the system quite a bit. He can't here and there. Him and Cousins are pretty similar in terms of when their negatives show up, and then they have that crazy. They'll have some downfield throws that are pretty crazy. Like, why don't we see more of that? I see a little more from Goff in that category. He's at 9, but yeah, again, he's at 19. But if it wasn't for that Dolphins game, he'd probably be better ranked than this. Baker at 18, not a whole bunch of production, but has won them games, actually. You almost think that the running game has to win him games. Almost like similar to Cousins. We can have another comparison here because it's pretty much the same style offense. With Stefanski coming from Minnesota to the Browns. So you almost, like Cousins, where you almost need the running game to win him the game. Baker's been a little more than that. I think he's went out and won some games for them, and that's what's been impressive. But again, not a whole bunch of production. He's had his games, against the better competition where he's turned the ball over, but he's, the end of the Bengals game, the second time around, clutch at the end of the game, driving down the field, making the big time throws. So he's been impressive, but another guy where it feels like everything does have to be going right. But I don't necessarily think he needs the running game to bail him out or to help him make big-time throws. So that's kind of what's setting him up. Matthew Stafford at 17, he's been a little disappointing. He's had those big moments, those explosive moments, big play moments, pretty ball down the field. He's had those moments, and in wins, he's looking pretty good. Another guy where, and it seems to be that range of the rankings, when things aren't going too well for the team, he starts to, not make the best decision. Maybe minus the Falcons game, kind of came back in that one, made some big plays. But yeah, just fresh off the Vikings game, turning the ball over the red zone. He's not really great in the pocket too. Sometimes hanging on the ball for too long, takes a sack. Sometimes stepping into a sack. Just the inability to get outside the pocket, throw on the run, be able to move. It's really slowing down there. So he's been inconsistent, very disappointing. It just feels like every offseason, I talked about this in the offseason too. All of a sudden, during the offseason, when there's no football, everyone's like, oh, Stafford's a top 10 quarterback. There's no question about it. But where's that coming from? Has he been in the season? At the end of a year, throughout the season, that matter. When has it happened? He's had some big moments, some big arm moments, big play moments. Won his team some games. Defense hasn't helped him out. But I don't know. I don't know. It's just another disappointing season. And are we going to get it again? Is going to continue on with this type of season? And then are we going to go in the offseason and everyone's like, he's a top 10 quarterback? No question. He's got to show it consistently. He's had top 10 moments. He had top 5 moments here and there. But does it matter? So that's kind of where I'm getting to with Matt Stafford. Is he just going to stick around these parts? You expect him better than 17. That's for sure. But just inconsistency. Let's get on to 16 to 13. We'll start with 16. Lamar Jackson at 16, so it's weird seeing him down here. He's fallen down since the start of the year where we expected him. Hasn't been the best throwing the ball. His targets haven't helped him, but sometimes he hasn't helped his targets. There's been games like that. The Chiefs game, his targets didn't really help him. When there's been some other games where, he probably should hit Hollywood Brown on that play. But then Hollywood Brown's let him down sometimes too. Same thing with Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews bails Lamar out. But then Mark Andrews lets Lamar down. It's kind of back and forth in those categories there. Hasn't really hit the big time throws. Has turned, the Steelers game just turned the ball over, making crucial bad mistakes here and there. Couldn't really dig himself out of the hole in the Chiefs game. Just nothing. He's made throws. Don't get me wrong. When we expect a guy top 5 or in that range, even at 16, which is a decent rank, you start getting on him a little bit. The running ability definitely keeps him up because that wins them games for sure. That it's hard to stop. So he's at 16. Teddy Bridgewater's had a pretty impressive year. He's at 15. throwing for a lot of yards. That's what's impressive. How many yards he's been throwing for. How many the big ability, the explosive plays downfield have been pretty impressive. He's accurate, which you expect that. The pocket awareness has been fantastic to be able to run. Escape sacks, run, get yards. It's all been pretty fantastic for him. Production-wise, you see the yards. You wish the touchdown and the interception was. He hasn't thrown really a lot of interceptions. We wish that was a little more. There's been some games where he kind of goes quiet, though, at the same time. He's these big plays, big moments, and he kind of goes quiet. He's had some late turnovers. Not that he has a lot of turnovers. But, yeah, he's been impressive. He's at 15. We got 2 rookies in a row, 13, 14. These have been flipping pretty much every single week. Justin Herbert, fresh off another good performance. Joe Burrow, fresh off a bye week. So maybe that's why Herbert's at 13. But he's racked up a few more touchdowns than Joe Burrow, actually. They've both had some late turnovers that they're not terrible, but you wish Herbert maybe a little more in that category. That's kind of the coaching's probably hurt that team a little more. Defense as well, but there was times where he's turned the ball over late that kind of hurt him. But these guys might as well be tied at this point because I'm back and forth on them every single week. It's a race until the end. I can't wait to see how it finishes. They both play great defenses here. Justin Herbert going against the Dolphins and Joe Burrow going against the Steelers here in Week 10. So excited to see that. It's crazy that they're in the top 15 already, and they're pretty close to the top 10. They're right there. So it's good to see that. Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, the big playability is really not surprising, but the surprising part is just acting like they're veteran quarterbacks. Knowing timing, knowing when to move around out of the pocket, knowing when back shoulder plays, knowing when to throw it. Exactly. I think that's usually the hardest part for quarterbacks. Because the receiver very well could keep going on a go route, and these guys have been fantastic on routes like that. That's just one example, but. Just very smart quarterbacks at their young age here, so that's impressive. Now we're getting to the big boys. Number 12 is going to be Matt Ryan. Has thrown for a lot of yards. That's really not a surprise, but does that mean a lot? It means something. Pretty solid touchdown-interception ratio. Been pretty accurate with the ball. The downfield ability is fantastic, and we see it popping up more and more. They played last week. The Broncos, they played last week. See those big plays. He hasn't had a lot of turnovers, but has had some turnovers to kind of hurt the team a little bit. The defense actually has been playing way better than expected recently. So it's not as much pressure on Matt Ryan as the past. It's not really, you don't have that easy blame the defense, So he's got to take care of the ball in those crucial moments. And for the most part, he has got to go out there and win some games. Winning some games definitely matters as well. Tom Brady at 11, and Tom Brady's a weird one because if it was before the Saints game, he may have been ranked much higher than that, and they're fresh off that brutal Saints game there, where it wasn't good, and he's had those classic vintage Tom Brady moments, Raiders game, Packers game, a lot. I mean, even in games where it's like, they're nothing crazy. He's had those big play moments, those smart moments, moving around the pocket, making that throw, even on the run, so he's had those even elite Brady moments. I'm not saying he's elite right now. And he's went out there, looked dominant at times, won games, high-powered offense at times. But then there's those times like the Saints game that just pops up. And how do you do those offset? Where do you put them? Yeah, the big plays are probably more impressive than how negative the bad plays are, if that makes any sense. But what I'm realizing now after the Saints game is there's a lot of inconsistency, and consistency is a big part. Of playing quarterback. So that he lost some points on that one for me. So I dropped him down to 11. If it wasn't for the Saints game, he probably would have been ranked much higher. He was in the MVP category even for most people. But yeah, consistency is the issue here. Deshaun Watson at 10. He's starting to pick it up a little bit. You wish he would win more games, but yeah, he's kind of holding his team up. You see the big play ability, where it is, no matter where it is across the field, the running ability. It's the losses definitely are not on him. There's some times where I do blame him on some sacks. Actually, he'll step into him, get a little crazy. He wants to move too early. Sometimes he acts like he's kind of been doing that for a bit, where he acts like the pressure's instantly on him. But I guess not being able to win, which still matters, even though it's definitely not really his fault. But sometimes some quarterbacks find ways, and then sometimes he'll take those sacks. I guess that's weighing him down from being where we think he can be, which is in the top 5. So he's at 10, still a pretty good ranking, given the Texans' record. Drew Brees is really climbing up the ranks, after the last few weeks. He started off a little sloppy there, wasn't really able to complete some passes, down over 10, 15 yards or so. Then he really started to pick it up. He's really starting to pick it up, looking like he's getting better in that category. He still has that vintage Drew Brees touch pass down the field. So I'm not really worried about the downfield passes. I guess it's more just the arm strength and trusting, because early in the year you would look off guys that were open downfield, but he's really got himself out of that. He's been fantastic, extremely accurate with the ball, actually buying himself time, at his age, more of a pocket passing quarterback, able to find his ways more time and, staying relaxed as well, which is key. A lot of quarterbacks just can't figure out, how to stay, the pocket presence, just stay relaxed, don't panic too early. He's been fantastic. Like most years with him, and then getting his team winning games again, because the Saints were a little iffy, Drew Brees a little iffy, and they really starting to figure it out. They're hot right now. So Drew Brees inside the top 10, number 9. After the first, 4 weeks? 4 weeks. We probably wouldn't expected him all the way up at 9 too. So it's impressive where he's able to go now. Next group of guys, Ben Roethlisberger at 8, doesn't have a single loss, so that definitely means something. But yeah, very productive year too. Maybe in terms of like crazy amount of yards, maybe not as productive as some other guys up here, but not too far off. But yeah, I think winning games, it's not just the Steelers are winning. It's more of Big Ben is going out there. Well, that matters too, but Big Ben going out there and I think winning his team games. Sometimes the offense isn't on 100% of the game, but when you need him, to make that huge play, he's been going out and doing it, driving his team down the field, getting that score because they absolutely needed one. So that is pretty noticeable to me. And he's pretty efficient too. The last few years he's played, he didn't play last year. Remember, an injury that no one's really, I don't know if a quarterback's ever come back from that, some odd surgery, so, and he's coming back from that. But before that, the last couple years before that, he's been, throwing for a lot of yards, a lot of touchdowns, but he's been turning the ball over a bunch, and we're not really seeing that, from Big Ben. So I think he's been fantastic, better than expected in winning his team games. I know the rest of the team's helping him win games as well, but I think he goes with that only undefeated team right now, so he's top 8. I'm very much impressed with Derek Carr this year. He's been extremely accurate. The downfield, I'm always looking, I said it probably a million times in this video, but the quarterbacks these days need the big playability or they're just not going to win anything, and he's got that, been fantastic. The offensive linemen are in and out like crazy. They're still probably on the top end of the league towards it, but a lot of shifting there's been around Derek Carr. He's been able to find ways and make big plays around it. So, yeah, he's been taking care of the ball as well, too. He's been very, very, very good with the ball, but at the same time, sometimes those guys just can't make the plays downfield, but he's been doing it. I've been very impressed with Derek Carr, so he's at 7. Kyler Murray at 6, and he's climbing up the ranks. I haven't been doing these rankings, throughout the first half of the year, but kind of in my mind, he's definitely climbed the last few weeks. The running ability is ridiculous. He adds that to his game, and that's definitely a bonus, helps him out. But he's throwing the ball extremely well. Earlier in the year, he had, almost as many interceptions as touchdowns, so that wasn't good. Kind of inconsistent. You can throw him on the field, and you make this crazy play downfield, and then he'll go right back on the field, and he'll have that sloppy footwork for an interception. I think it's all with his footwork. He gets a little too crazy sometimes, and then you can see when it's about to happen. So he needs to calm down, stay more consistent. But the running ability combined with the throw on the run, the downfield ability, has been beautiful. He's been boosting his team big time. He definitely did more than enough to win the Dolphins game. That was just a heck of a game between two good teams. But yeah, and it's a reason why the Cardinals are playoff contenders right now. Kyler Murray has been fantastic. Sometimes I feel like the play calling's only thing kind of holding him back. But again, he's got to settle down with the footwork a little bit. Sometimes he makes mistakes, but he's cleaning it up a little bit. He's getting better at every step of the way. So he's definitely made himself in the conversation of a top-tier quarterback on the year. Ryan Tannehill's been number 5. He's been very efficient. You see very accurate with the ball, and limiting the turnovers. Really, one that stands out, I guess, the Bengals one when they were driving the field early in the game in the red zone. That's the only one that I really get on him about that, I guess. But you see the running ability too. He's able to make plays with his legs. But yeah, you see him perfect balls down the sideline in the end zone, taking shots. He's good getting the tempo game going underneath. The medium route, intermediate routes. But then he has that downfield too. been very accurate on those big plays, those crucial moments to kind of boost them, because they can rely on Derrick Henry sometimes, but then they need that big play downfield from Tannehill, and that's kind of when he shows up. Or sometimes during the year, it's kind of been Tannehill that's kind of been the team making those plays, and then they can go to Derrick Henry. So it's kind of been back and forth with that. They don't really have to rely on one or the other. So Tannehill's it's weird seeing him up at number 5, but I guess really not. After the way he ended last year, throughout the regular season and the playoffs, didn't do a whole bunch of playoffs, but throughout the end of the regular season, I guess it shouldn't be that much of a surprise. And we're on to the top 4 guys here. Josh Allen coming in at number 4. He started the year off like a top 4 guy, maybe better, then calmed down a little bit. Wasn't necessarily playing bad or anything. I wouldn't even put it close to bad. He just wasn't doing a whole lot. And now he's starting to really pick it up again. So that's fantastic. I think the offense definitely runs through him. I think the plays they're able to run is because of Josh Allen. You see a variety of plays. You see him win with his legs. You see him escape the pressure. I think that's what we see here, on the top 4. A lot of guys that can make that big play when things aren't going well. When they're getting pressure, they got to dig the team out of the hole, or it's a back and forth type game. I think they're all pretty comparable in that category. But, yeah, Allen just been insanely impressive. A lot of throws that a lot of guys just can't make. Maybe only these guys can make them. So he's been fantastic. Just want to see a little more consistency, but even with the inconsistency, which I wouldn't even label it that, because it's not like he's going, one game, he's fantastic. Another game, he's like throwing a bunch of interceptions or completely blowing the game for his team. It's really not the case there. So he's been extremely impressive. Crazy to see him at 4. Aaron Rodgers at 3, pretty close to 2. Actually pretty close to 2. The difference between Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers, decide with Aaron Rodgers. He's been a little more careful with the ball. I just think Russell Wilson's been able to, escape the pressure a little more, been able to throw on the run a little better, even though Rodgers fantastic. In rough situations, Wilson's been able to make the plays as well. Not that Rodgers hasn't. I think Wilson's just been doing a little more of that. Where if you have to nitpick there, Rodgers, facing the pressure against the Bucs, he couldn't really dig himself. That's one game, though. But when we're talking the elites of the elite here, but Rodgers been fantastic. Still throwing. He looks much better than last year. He actually looks much better. Throwing the ball, downfield, making those big plays, third down, just a lot of plays, just without Aaron Rodgers, even when other really good quarterback, the Packers wouldn't be where they're at, because, there's a lot of risky plays they take, just taking the deep shot after, the Saints game. I remember they just kept going to it. And then it was just started working. And if those plays didn't complete, if they weren't perfect throws, they may have lost that game. So that's just one example. Those are the games that Rodgers is going out there and winning. Just looks like vintage Rodgers here. It's been very fun to watch too, because he's just one of those guys where you've seen it so much, but when he makes that play, it makes you, get out of your seat. Like, even though it shouldn't really surprise you because you've seen it from him specifically, but he continues to do it. And that's why he's a great quarterback. And then Russell Wilson, same thing. We've seen a lot of these deep balls, these crazy plays from Russell Wilson when he's under pressure, when he's about to be hit, when he has to escape a bunch of guys, then using his legs downfield as well. But it still gets you out of your seat. It's still just... it's just mind-blowing how somebody's able to do some of the things he does, clutching up, getting his team back from behind, starting a little slow, like the Minnesota game, starting a little slow, and then just really, being that elite Russell Wilson down the stretch and winning that ball game. So plays like that, if you had to knock him, the 2 games they lost, he's turned the ball over a little bit, a little bit, but it is on his defense a bit too. But Patrick Mahomes, I got at 1. Not too much thinking on that. I'm a Patrick Mahomes guy in the past, but this video isn't predictions or anything. It's just based on this year. And this year, I think he's been the best. I think he's been fantastic. He's still making those crazy plays that still blow your mind, even when you already seen them. He's the Panthers game, a little scary. A little scary. They got to figure out some adjustments, and they really do. They're not beating him with speed, really. They got to figure out other ways to win it. He's still able to make some big-time throws, and he's been able to do that. You look at the game like the Ravens is the one that stands out. The Ravens are a fantastic defense, one of the best in football, and they're like the best basically the best blitzing team in football, and they beat quarterbacks because they blitz them and get them uncomfortable. But it didn't faze Mahomes. They blitzed them. He made them pay off the blitz. And they pretty much have to change their entire defense because that's what they live by, and that makes it even easier for Mahomes. So he really just tears down defenses, and it shows it every single week. And then when you need him to step up, make that big play, he's going to make it. He's going to make it. Just every part of the game, his game, the offensive line. I feel like hasn't really been the same as the past. Last year in the playoff run, looking elite. So he's able to still play at that extremely elite, high level, even with that as well. And he's very good with the ball, not turn the ball over too much, anything like that, extremely accurate, everything. So I don't really think it's too much of a question here. But these are the big play guys up here, and that could be a big reason why they're up here. But again, I wish I mentioned it right when I started the video, just so nobody got the wrong idea. But I don't think they would. But yeah, these aren't predictions or anything. These are just how they played. This is not my thinking in general going into a new year. We're 9 weeks through the season, and this is how they played in my eyes. I watch a lot of football. I'm sure a lot of you guys do as well. But this is what I've seen. And again, we're only halfway through the season, so like one game can change this. Whether a 16-game sample. And then adding one more game on that, which would be a playoff game, wouldn't really change much because you get a whole bunch of games to go off. This is only going off half the year. So another week here in Week 10 could actually shift some things, in my mind, I suppose. But we'll do this at the end of the year, and we can see how much they move. We can put in there, did they go up, down from the halfway point? Where'd they go? We have other videos like this. We have them on the channel. We have more to come at the end of the year as well. But yeah, that's my rankings. That is my quarterback rankings. I'm sure people are going to love me in the comments, like always. But yeah, plenty of NFL coverage, picks every week, score predictions, power rankings, a lot more here. Follow that Twitter. Smash that like button if you enjoyed. Please subscribe, turn notifications on so you don't miss a thing. That's going to do it for this one, though. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.